Hello, everybody. How is everyone doing today? I'm just going to give it a second, see who's going to join me today. I hope you all are having a wonderful Sunday. It is such a cold day here today in Kentucky. It's crazy. We had some rain last night and then some snow, and everything was a sheet of ice this morning, so we haven't been out of the house at all. Hopefully it's much better where you are. Let me just turn my Wi-Fi off. I'm going to give it another minute and we're going to get started. So I want to start today a little differently. I want to read a poem, one of my favorite poems from Rumi. This is taken from the Essential Rumi. It's one of my very old, I think I got this book back in, 99. But it's really one of my favorites. So I want to share with you because I think it goes really nicely with what we're going to be talking about today, which is emotions and feelings. So this particular poem by Rumi is called The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. This is absolutely beautiful, and I will share it in the group because I just think it's such a beautiful expression of what our feelings are really intended to do for us. So I want to get right into it. If you're just joining me, welcome. If you're watching the replay, thank you for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. Last week we talked about self-confidence and how self-confidence is really that knowing or the ability that we have to be able to manage our emotions and know that no matter what comes up for us in terms of feelings that we would be okay. So I thought it would be important for us today to segue into the deeper topic of feelings and how we can manage them, but also how we can learn the difference between reacting to feelings and actually feeling our feelings, because I think that many of us go through life thinking that we're doing one thing, but we're really doing another. So what does it really mean to feel? How can we learn to fully experience a diverse range of feelings without getting swept away or being controlled by them? That's the question, right? Well, my goal today is to hopefully by the end of this session have you come to some sort of understanding or a better understanding on how you can connect to your feelings more deeply so that you're able to hold space for them and feel them instead of suppressing them or reacting to them or even trying to cover them up. Because that's something that many of us also do. Now, what's interesting is that when it comes to feeling or experiencing an emotion, many of us experience them in one of three ways, really. The first thing that many do is to resist that feeling in order to just avoid experiencing it, especially if we're dealing with one of the bigger emotions. If I were to ask the average person, do you know how to experience, let's say, anxiety or anger or fear? They would probably say, of course I do, Ari. I know how to experience all those. I feel those all the time. But when I watch people and I interact with people, what I find is that when they say that they know how to experience these emotions, what they really mean is that they know how to either resist, react, or suppress them. And I want you to think back for a second. When you were a child, how did your parents deal with you when you tried to express a really big emotion? Did they encourage you, or did they allow you to feel the emotion and let it out? Or did your parents tell you to calm yourself down, get a hold of yourself, suck it up, or stop acting like a baby? I want you to share in the comments with me what your experience was. For me personally, as a young girl, I really wasn't encouraged or taught how to acknowledge my feelings. And as a result of that, I really didn't learn how to manage my emotions until I was like in my mid-30s, which is really a shame because I went through most of my adult life not knowing how to navigate my emotions when it came to relationships, when it came to just regular family relationships, business relationships. I never knew that there was a healthier option. And really, unless you've had the help of a really good therapist or a really good coach, it's really difficult to learn to be present with our emotions. It's not something that is natural to us unless we've had really enlightened parents that instilled that in us from a very young age. And I know that's not the case for many of us. So as I was preparing for this, it really, made me reflect on how babies, process their emotions. If you observe a child from the age that they're able to articulate their feelings, if you pay attention, you can learn a lot from them because they truly teach us how it's done as far as feelings and emotions. They know how to sit with a feeling. They know how to honor it. They know how to move on, right? A child can have a meltdown in 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes later, they're totally okay. They're smiling and they're playing and like nothing ever happened. So this is an important, thing for us to kind of pay attention to because I think we can learn a lot from them. And the funny thing is that we as parents, of course, with the best of intentions, because we're all doing the best that we can, we try to teach our children to suppress those emotions by doing this very thing that we're talking about, telling them to suck it up, or it'll be, just calm down. It's going to be fine. You're fine. So we really kind of coerce them or maybe unconsciously brainwash them into disconnecting from their inner wisdom and their inner power. And I bring that up not so that we can feel like we're horrible parents, because as I said before, we're all doing the best that we can. But it's important for us to be aware that if that didn't help us when we were kids or when we were babies, then it's certainly not going to help our children. So we really need to figure out a better way. And that's why we're having this conversation. So I want you to understand that there is no bad emotion. There's no bad emotion. All our emotions are our friends. They all serve as our internal guidance system, right? Or maybe a better way of putting that is our internal alarm system. When you think of fear, for example, fear can serve as a safety mechanism. If you pay real close attention to the sensations in your body when you're experiencing fear, you'll notice that almost instantly, there are many chemical messages rushing through your body, directing energy from one part of your body to another, from one organ to another. I read that your digestive system literally slows down when you're overcome with fear. Your heart speeds up, your pupils dilate, your blood pressure rises. So these are all natural responses that are part of what's called that fight or flight response from the body. And it really is fascinating. It happens instinctively when we feel threatened. And it's our body's way of either helping us fight a situation or helping us to successfully run away from it. So just like fear, all the other emotions that we may experience are there to serve a purpose. And whether we realize it or not, everything that we've ever created, everything that we've ever done, everything that we've ever put ourselves out there for is because of an emotion. It's because of a feeling. So it really is important that we acknowledge them. But here's the thing though. How many of you believe that if you're going to feel anger, you have to scream or you have to punch a wall or you have to throw something across the room to really feel it? Or that if you're going to feel sadness, hey Chris, hello, how are you? Thank you for joining me. Or that if you're going to feel sadness or, one of those kind of low emotions, that you have to express them by crying. I want you to think about that for a second, because remember last week we talked about how you have a circumstance, right? An external situation that comes up, and then you create a thought, and then that thought, if you allow it to fester, creates a feeling. And then if you allow that feeling to take over your body, it creates an action, and then you have your experience. So as an example, let's say you're driving to work and you get cut off in traffic, which is something that happens all the time, right? Based on your perception of the situation, you choose to now create an angry thought. So you're driving along and this person cuts you off again. Now you're really pissed, right? You're starting to feel hot. You're starting to feel that energy rushing through your body. Now you're on the verge of going from just a thought to an actual feeling or an actual emotion. And so what we learned last week is that self-confidence is what? It's the ability to be able to manage any feeling or emotion that comes up because of a given situation, right? Or a thought. So now here you are in this situation, you're allowing yourself to feel that anger in your body. And that triggers you too. Yes. It triggers many of us, absolutely. So now you're allowing yourself to feel that anger in your body. How could this anger turn into an action? I want you to think about that. It's a thought that now has manifested into a feeling. So what does it look like when you allow that anger to turn into action? Yes. It is scary. It is scary. It triggers many of us because it's, so many awful things happen on the road because people are either distracted, right, road rage, or they're just not considerate. They're not thinking about the other people on the road. They might be on their cell phone, texting. So it's totally understandable. But what happens is if you allow that anger to fester, right, and to kind of take over your body, maybe the action will be that you are going to, blow the horn, right? Or maybe you're going to give them the finger. Or maybe you're going to roll down the window and yell at them. And this intense surge of energy flowing through your body at this particular moment in this example gives you the impression that that's how you feel anger, that you're now feeling angry, and that's what you're doing. But what I want you to consider is that just because you're acting out the emotion of anger does not mean that you are actually or truly allowing yourself to experience it. And I know that this might be kind of a new concept for you, but I really want you to think about it. So far we've mentioned how most people, when it comes to their emotions, or at least the big, challenging emotions, they either suppress them, they either react to them, which is the example that I just gave, or the other thing that many people resort to is to actually distract themselves from it. And so the way that a lot of people, which is probably the most common, but the way that a lot of people choose to do this is by either overeating or maybe indulging in mood altering activities like drug or alcohol abuse. Anything to not feel the emotion. That's pretty much the end game. Anything to not feel that uncomfortable, difficult, challenging emotion. So I want you to think about which one of these is your default action or choice when you experience these scary emotions, these uncomfortable emotions. You don't have to comment. I don't want to try to, single you out or call you out, but I want you to be honest with yourself. Which one do you typically resort to? Do you suppress? Do you react or act out? Or do you cover them up? So how do we actually feel our emotions? Well, the first and very important emotional skill that I teach anyone that I coach is to learn how to hold space for their emotion. And what does this mean exactly? Well, holding space just basically means that you acknowledge the emotion without forming any type of judgment. So if I'm working with someone, what that would look like is basically they can tell me anything that's on their mind, anything they want to share, and I will not judge them. I will not, I am able to suspend any opinion, any judgment. I'm able to remain neutral throughout our conversation so that that person can feel totally accepted. But the reality is that holding or being able to hold space is not automatic for us. It's actually very difficult for us, especially when we're doing it for ourselves, because the minute that thought creeps up, what happens is we start judging. And what this does is it actually blocks our ability to truly feel that emotion. Let me just see if I'm missing any comments here. Hey, Lindsay, thank you for joining us. Most people do a combination. Yes, absolutely. So instead, when we go into that judgment mode of our own emotions, what it does is it basically forces us to either suppress it, act on it, or cover it up. Those are pretty much our default choices. But now when we learn to hold space for our emotions without judgment, it allows us to truly sit with them, and it allows us to feel them in our body. And so if you think about something sad, or let's say you find out someone died, someone you knew or cared for died, that thought that you now have in your mind is going to create a certain emotion or feeling in your body, a certain, emotions are basically energy in motion. And that's literally how it feels. It's like a surge of energy just flowing. That emotion in your body is a vibration, and it's meant to be experienced and allowed. And when we try to block those vibrations or distract ourselves, we really miss the opportunity of feeling truly alive, because part of being human is being able to experience a range of emotions, a rainbow of emotions. So again, hey, Leilani, welcome. We need to get better at feeling and allowing. Absolutely. So remember, holding space is being willing to sit with the emotion without judgment. Okay. The second thing is we need to do is allow the emotion to sit there. What I normally like to do is when I feel an emotion that makes me uncomfortable, it's not one of the warm and fuzzy ones, like joy and happiness. If it's something like anxiety or fear, I try to close my eyes, I take a deep breath, and I just kind of allow myself to be. Okay. I try really hard to get out of my body, or out of my head rather, because we're always up here when it comes to our emotions. Okay. This is where the thought starts. So we have to kind of get out of our head and allow ourselves to just kind of go into our bodies. And this allows me to feel what is going on in my body. And I just basically sit there with my emotion for as long as I need to. And I tell myself, I can either resist this, I can either react to it, I can distract myself from it. But what I'm going to choose is I'm going to choose to just truly feel it. Okay, I'm going to allow it. I'm going to stay present with it. I'm going to acknowledge it without any judgment. if it's shame, if it's guilt, if it's fear, anxiety, sadness, it doesn't matter what the emotion is, allow it. And once I do that, I notice that I find myself coming back. And if you try this, I promise you that you will notice yourself releasing the resistance and allowing yourself to feel, to just be there in that space with the feeling. Another tip, hi Shama, welcome, welcome. Another tip that works for me in truly feeling emotions is to name them, describe them in detail. If it's anxiety, describe what is happening in your body, not in your mind, in your body. If you close your eyes and you take a deep breath and you feel that surge of energy as you're experiencing it, your body is going to tell you where you're feeling it, what it is that you're feeling. For me, anxiety could feel like a buzzing in my chest area. It could feel like tingling in my arms. It could feel like tightness in my throat. Whatever it is that you feel, however you experience that emotion, because we're all different, right? But allow yourself to truly describe the emotion. And this part is really powerful, breathing it in, relaxing your body, feeling that emotion, taking that deep breath so that you can center yourself. Because once you describe it, you'll notice that what happens is in your mind, you're able to almost separate yourself from it, from that feeling. And I find that the emotion actually loses its power over me when I do that. So you're going to begin to understand that the feeling or the emotion is not you, okay? It's not you, and you can control it. Now, I really want you to try that, because until you've experienced, kind of like consciously describing your emotion, getting in tune with your body so that you see what it feels like in your body when you're angry or when you're disappointed, when you're sad, you're going to understand what I mean, what I'm trying to say here. I really want you to try this exercise the next time you're experiencing one of those big, uncomfortable emotions. And the next thing that I want you to try is to name the emotion, okay? And I think that this is something that may be really challenging for a lot of us, because, when we were kids, we really weren't encouraged to develop an emotional vocabulary. So as a result, just think about it now. If someone asks you how you're doing today, what is your typical response? I'm fine. I'm good, right? We say this almost like if we're robots. When if we really dig deep inside, maybe what we're feeling is not fine. Maybe we're not good. Maybe we're just kind of covering that up. Maybe we're feeling sad. Maybe we're feeling excited. Maybe we're feeling embarrassed. So we really need to kind of expand our emotional vocabulary so that we can more easily connect to what it is that we're feeling in our bodies when these emotions show up. So that's really important. Start naming your emotions. Don't just say I'm angry, because usually there's something underneath that. And there's actually another word that would describe that emotion. It's not just anger. Okay? Be very specific. Instead of saying I feel sad, go deeper, because maybe that's not the feeling that you're feeling. Maybe it's not sadness. Maybe it's discouraged. Maybe you're disappointed or frustrated. Do you see what I mean? Yes. And this is how we develop emotional intelligence. This is what emotional intelligence is about. It's about being able to sit with our emotions and not allow our emotions to control us. Okay, and when we're able to do these practices on our own, then you'll find that you can pretty much navigate through any situation and maintain your cool, maintain your dignity, and not feel like you're out of control or that you have to go back and apologize because you said something that you didn't mean to. So it's really an important thing for us to learn how to do. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to post a list of of different emotions after the live. I'm going to post it as a file in the group because I really want you to be able to refer to that. Maybe you can save it on your phone or, print it out and tape it near your desk, however you see fit to use it. But it'll give you some ideas on words that you can use as you're now becoming more conscious of your feelings, instead of resorting to the basic sad, angry or anxious. You will have a wider range of words to pick from that might actually better represent what it is that you're feeling in your body. So again, expanding that emotional vocabulary will really help us to, identify when these come up. It will help us to wrap our head around what our body is experiencing. And I think after we allow the emotion to sit, we describe it or name it, and then we have to be fully present with it. So what does it look like to be fully present? It's a practice, yes. Yes, Shama. Once you recognize it, it's almost like you acknowledge it. Oh, there you are. You're showing up again. Okay. But you don't have to react to it. If you remember last week, we learned that you have a thought, and then if you allow that to fester, it creates a feeling, right? So now if you're not in control, what happens is that feeling turns into an action. So that's why we kind of react to our emotion, because it's kind of like it's a safety mechanism in a way, but it's not an intelligent way of handling our emotions. It's kind of like a cowardly way, okay? Because our emotions are not us. They're not even real half the time. They're manufactured in our head. And so excuse me for a second. I'm going to turn on this light. I'm sorry about that. It was light out when we started, and now it's getting dark here. So yes, once you're able to recognize the emotion and sit with it, you're able to detach yourself from it, and you're able to see that you have no power over me. I created you so I can control you. You see? So it's really a powerful skill and a powerful exercise to do. And there has to be, in order for us to be able to sit with our emotion, you have to kind of be willing. There has to be a willingness to feel it. Maybe it's anxiety, or maybe it's fear, or maybe it's frustration. Instead of trying to hold, like you're trying to hold a door shut, you have to be willing to open that door and walk through that space so that you can allow yourself to sit with that energy, with the energy of that particular emotion, and not be afraid. Not be afraid of experiencing that. One of the more powerful things that we can do instead of pushing away an emotion or reacting to it is really allowing it. The other way of thinking about it is to coexist with it instead of trying to get rid of it. Okay, so I don't know if that makes sense to any of you. I see yes. Okay, so this is resonating. Awesome. I have often experienced that when I allow an emotion to be there, to be present, and I allow myself to sit with it, it literally will dissipate within minutes. If I acknowledge it, I name it, I describe it, and I allow myself to feel it in my body, it does its job, and then it's gone. And kind of like that example of a baby that I used in the beginning. If you didn't catch that, you may want to, just watch the beginning. But I use the example of a baby, how we can really learn from them how emotions are to be felt. Because a baby will have a meltdown, and then 5 minutes later, they're like back to their life again. And so, we can really learn a lot from them, I think. So if you acknowledge it, identify it, and allow space for it, it will go away. And of course, there are feelings, depending on what is happening in our lives or what we're going through emotionally, there are feelings that do linger for some time. If you're prone to feelings of depression or anxiety, just follow the same process. Judging those feelings and feeling shame and guilt over them is really what would make them stay longer. There's nothing wrong with you if you feel depressed. There's nothing wrong with you if you feel guilt or shame. You can learn to hold space for those too, the same way, without judgment. And remember that all feelings are good. They're there to protect you. They're there to send you a message. And I think it's when we try to fight, resist, or cover them up that we actually make things worse, because they linger. And then we go into, periods where we're constantly down because we haven't really learned how to allow space for that emotion so that it can then do its job and move on. Okay? It makes sense. Good. And here's the thing. I'm not even going to suggest that this is easy, because if it was easy, I don't think the world would be in the state that we're in today. There's obviously a lot of people that haven't mastered this skill, and that's why we have so many problems in our communities and in the world. But I think your willingness to do it, your willingness to get uncomfortable, basically, it's what's going to allow you to grow to the point where you've mastered this. Just like anything else, if we don't want to get uncomfortable, then we're going to remain in the same spot that we're in today. There's only growth when we allow ourselves to get uncomfortable, when we allow ourselves to feel things that don't feel good, don't make us feel good. That's when we are successful in our goals. That's when we grow emotionally, when we allow that space for that. So I want you to allow yourselves to be uncomfortable. I want you to, open yourself up to trying this new way of experiencing your emotions, because many of us are, in our 30s and 40s or even 50s. And I would dare say that the first half of our lives we've spent distracting ourselves from our emotions in some way or another, whether it's, by suppressing them, reacting to them, or covering them up with substances, because that's really, I was having a conversation with someone in our community this week. She's a community organizer, and she was working on a project with someone, and they were talking about the drug abuse here. Kentucky has one of the highest incidences of drug abuse. And one of the things that she and I were talking about was how, with very few exceptions, because I know that there's some chemical, imbalances in the brain that affect people's actions. But for the most part, when you analyze what drives people to do drugs, it's usually an emotional component there. There's an emotional component there, something that they're lacking, a need that has not been met. And so what I feel, that's why, in my comments, when I post things, I always say that having emotional intelligence and us teaching this to our children could really change the world. Because when you have emotional skills, when you're able to know that your emotions don't control you, that you actually can control them, you can control your outcome, you can control your experience. And so that allows you to feel differently about yourself and about your place in this world. And so I really believe that, many of the people that are struggling with addiction is because they've never really figured out a way. They were never taught, or I don't know, but they never really figured out a way to coexist with their emotions. Or maybe no one taught them that it's okay to feel this, but this is how you navigate through it. So yes, they're covering it up. Addiction, yes, Shama, exactly. It's basically a way to cover up so that you don't feel pain, you don't feel loneliness, you don't feel whatever it is that wasn't met as a child or as an adult. That's all it is. You're kind of trying to desensitize that or numb that. And so when you know how to sit with pain, and you know how to sit with sadness, and you know how to sit with anxiety or disappointment, then it opens up your eyes and your mind into realizing that I have more control over my life than I give myself credit for. And it really changes everything. Yes, it really changes everything. So I pray that, for any of us here that are parents, Our children need these tools. Our children really need these tools. They do. And the only way that we're able to give it to them is if we ourselves are using it, are implementing it so that they can see our example. And then we can have constant conversations with them about what it means like or what it looks like to have emotional intelligence, you know? So I promise you that once you learn this, it will really transform your life, and it will also allow you to experience your emotions and anything that happens to you in a different way. So yeah, let me just see if I missed anything. We have to teach our kids to do the same. Absolutely. We have to. It's such a, and like I said before, our parents didn't know any better. So it's not a matter of blaming them, or, they did the best that they could. They didn't get it from their parents. And a lot of times, unless we set out on this self-awareness journey on our own, many of us won't get it. We won't get it. So we have to really be in a constant pursuit to grow so that we can, continue to change the destructive cycle that's happening now. And here's the other thing, that once you become more skilled at feeling, at allowing yourself to feel all these emotions, you're going to be more willing to put yourself in situations that are going to make you uncomfortable, but are also going to push you to grow. That's just going to be, and I think that's exciting, because you're no longer going to hold back from doing things that you were afraid of. You're now going to realize that emotion is just a thought in my mind. I can control it any time. And the worst that can happen is what? A thought and a feeling. That's it. You don't have to let it go beyond that. You choose. That's the power that you have. You choose. It can be in your head, and it can, you can allow it to feel it in your body, but it doesn't have to go beyond that. It doesn't have to go into action mode, which basically won't be your experience because you're choosing that. Okay? So put yourself in challenging situations. I encourage you the next few days, as you start your week, I want you to experiment with what you've learned here today. Allow yourself to, play with self-doubt, play with fear, play with whatever emotion that kind of triggers you. Don't suppress them. Try to allow yourself to actually, take that deep breath, find your center, and just feel what it brings you. Feel what that emotion is there to do for you. And then you choose to move on. You don't have to act on it. Allow yourself that. Even if it gets uncomfortable, just know that at the end of the day, you are going to be okay. Yes, yes. Non-judgment. That's right. Yes. No, you're fine. You're fine. I'm glad that this is helpful. It's really a life skill. It's really a life skill that we need in order to get through. And it helps us in our relationships with our partners. It helps us with our relationships with our children, at work. It's just going to be a game changer once you're able to master it. And, it might not work the way that you think it will the first time you try it, but don't give up. Don't think, oh, I didn't get it right, so I'm not going to do that again. No, practice. And even if you feel that you've gotten it, this is, like I said to you the other day, to you all, when I came live and I was sharing how uncertain I felt over a situation that I was going to encounter, that was like intense for me. Like the sensations in my body, my hands were shaking. I was feeling it. I was really feeling it, but I allowed myself to feel it. And I knew, man, this sucks. It feels awful, but I'm not going to die. And I didn't die. The meeting didn't turn out the way that I was hoping, but it opened up so many other doors for me, so many other thoughts and ideas. So all in all, it was effective. And because I allowed it, you know, I think it turned out that way, because I could have said, you know what, I'm not dealing with this. I'm gonna call and say that I'm sick, or I can't make it to the meeting. That could have been my way of suppressing it or covering it up. But I didn't. I chose to face it. I chose to sit with it and just allow it to bring me whatever gift it was going to bring. Just like that poem that we read in the beginning. Okay? So I know that's a lot to process. Feel free to watch the replay again. I'm going to make this available in a blog post probably towards the end of the week, depending on how busy I am. But this is really something that you might want to revisit, you know, every now and then, because again, it's not something that we just do once and then we're good. It's constant practice, constant practice. And I also want to say that if you're truly committed to removing the mental blocks that are holding you back from reaching your goals, or maybe developing the emotional intelligence, or your self-esteem the way that you would want, and you're curious to know how coaching one-on-one with me would look like, or how it could change your life, I encourage you to reach out to me. I have a very effective system along with exercises that we can go through that will help you take all of this to a different level. And I offer also a free discovery session. It's a 1-hour session via Zoom, which will give us a chance to chat and get a feel for what it would be like to work together. So I encourage you to do that. I mean, remember, everything that you need, you already have. You already have in you. But sometimes it's hard to figure that out on your own. And so if you need help connecting with your inner power, I would love to support you in any way that I can. So thank you. Thank you all for being here. I love each and every one of you very much. And I hope you all have an amazing, amazing night. Love to you all, okay? I'm going to sign off by now.